Hi everyone, this is Yana and I'm sharing several cards in this video and talking about building little scenes or little towns using itty bitty house stamps. Occasionally there comes a stamp set that is just the cutest one ever, and that makes me want to use it over and over again, and ideas just keep popping into my head on their own. The stamp set that I'm talking about today is called Town Essentials and it's from Hero Arts. I don't know why, but stamps like this make me feel like a little kid who is playing with building blocks. I used to love Lego when I was little. Heck, I still love Lego, not going to lie here. And I have an awesome Lego collection, and I still get the urge to buy a set or two once in a while. But anyhow, that's not what this video is about. So what I'm trying to say is that for me, for a stamper, stamp sets like this are like little Lego sets. I can take individual images and build little scenes with them. I can do that all day long, honestly. In fact, I've been playing with this set for 3 days already and I can't seem to stop. As soon as I finish a card, I have another idea and I just keep playing. So I've already made 3 projects and I'm going to quickly show you these, all made using the little houses. Now the first one has hills and houses sitting on those hills, and the hills were made using just a simple DIY masks and inks and ink blending tools, and I just blended green for the grass and blue for the sky here. There's some dimension here as well. Houses are foam mounted and they kind of pop up on the card. The second card was done using lots and lots of masking. The houses were identically watercolored, but I kept them in one piece and just foam mounted that piece onto my card and also blended the sky here. The third card is sort of like a window card, but there's no window. There's an opening, and some houses are sitting in that opening and others aren't. And this card actually gave me the idea for the card I'll be making in this video. You see how some of the houses at the bottom there are upside down? I made that and I thought it looked really cool, you know, like a town from a cartoon where you look at the street from the top. So that sparked another idea, and I'll share that in this video and I'll try to keep it quick. So here's that Town Essentials stamp set from Hero Arts. The one that I have is a prototype, so this is why it's completely clear. I've stamped it onto a piece of paper just to be able to see what images are in the set. And there are quite a few houses that I really like and keep using over and over again. I made a little plan or sort of like a sketch for this card on a piece of paper just to help me visualize my idea. I often do that. I have a few streets here and a bunch of houses and a whole lot of color. I already stamped lots of houses onto a sheet of smooth watercolor paper. This is just regular student grade watercolor paper, nothing fancy. The reason I picked this particular paper is because one of the sides is very smooth, and since these images are very detailed, I wanted something that smooth. I won't need as many houses, but I just stamped a lot just in case. I'm sure I'll use them for yet another card later. Here I have a couple examples where I practiced stamping these and coloring these directly on my paper instead of cutting them out and foam mounting. I didn't like these because it was really sort of like easy for me to mess up in one spot. And you know, once you mess up in one spot, it messes up the whole thing. So it ended up being easier for me to color these and then cut them out and foam mount onto my project. I also tried stamping a few houses in stone ink from Hero Arts. It's like a grayish color of ink, just to see if I like that. And while it looked nice, I still preferred the nice black ink for the outlines. But I think the stone ink will work great in some cases, and I can also see myself using the brown ink for this. So I'm going to quickly color these using Distress ink and a water brush. I'm using this one simply because it has a nice detailed edge or point. It's the finest one that I have on hand right now, and you want to use something very fine to color these images. So I'm coloring with Distress inks, but these can be colored using anything really. I did try to color with Copic markers, but I wasn't happy with the result, so I went with Distress. But you know, other watercolors, other markers, pencils, whatever you like to use to color, whatever makes you happy. So I'm using a couple of my go-to colors, nothing special. I started with Mustard Seed, now using Wild Honey Distress, and I'm pressing my ink pads onto a clear block and just picking up the color with the water brush. Because this is a water brush, I don't need any additional water. I have all the water I need in the brush. I'm going to speed this up quite a bit because I don't want to bore you to death with my coloring, and I'll just go through all the colors here. So after wild honey, I'm using picked raspberry and also seedless preserves. I love how vibrant these colors are. And also using peacock feathers and evergreen bough. And finally, we'll be adding some brown using the gathered twigs. I also colored trees using crushed olive distress ink. Once my coloring was done, I cut the images out right up to the edge. It was a little time consuming, but I didn't mind. The reason I cut those right up to the edge and didn't leave a white border like I usually do is because some of these houses had some very fine details, and I didn't want to spend too much time cutting those out, so I just cut them off. You know, like the crosses on the church and the balcony and the chimney on the tall houses. I also cut 3 strips of black cardstock. I'll use one of those for the sentiments and the other 2 will be just empty streets. So once I had all of my little building blocks done and ready to go, I started building my town. I placed the black strips, so those will serve as streets, and started adding houses above and below the streets. So I'm basically just planning how I want my houses placed on the card. I'm making sure I use different shapes and colors here and just have a nice variety, and also that I space everything nicely. Now, to make sure I keep things the way I want, I'm going to use washi tape and just temporarily adhere my houses onto washi so that I can place them back onto the card the way I had originally intended. I am adhering washi to my hand first to make it less sticky, and be sure to do that because I did ruin one of the houses with washi tape. It was too sticky and picked up the top layer of my watercolor paper and ruined one of the houses. I'm also using a pencil here and just marking where the black panels, the streets, are going to be. I'm doing that so that I know where to add them later and also so that I know where to do my ink blending. I'll be blending some blue ink onto the background to create the sky for this card. Now, when I finished the card, I wish I had added a heavier layer of blue, that I had blended some green for the grass to add more color to this project. So this is just something to keep in mind. I'm going to do my ink blending now. I've masked the area where the street is going to be, and I'm using my mini round ink blending tool and just adding pool ink from Hero Arts onto the panel using something like a flickering motion. Now, the mask that I'm using is nothing special. It's just a piece of paper that I happened to find on my desk. I did not even adhere it in place. I'm just holding it down with my fingers. So I'm using flickering motion. I'm not going in circles here, but flicking the ink from the mask onto the paper. I'm sure this is nothing new, but I just recently discovered this, and I'm really excited to try this ink blending method. So I'm doing that for all 3 streets of mine, adding sky in 3 sections here. And like I said, I wish I had added the grass as well. It would have looked much better that way and, added a little bit more color to the project. I'm going to heat emboss the sentiment onto one of the black strips, and I'm using the home is where you make it sentiment and heat embossing that in white embossing powder for a nice pop of color. I could have also embossed the other strips with additional sentiments, but I decided not to and only went with 1 sentiment for this card. Now, I did cut the sentiment stamp apart as it was a 3-line stamp and I wanted it to be a single line one. It's not a big deal for me. I often cut my stamps like this. I'm going to foam mount the strip onto my panel and I'm using black foam tape. I don't want any white to be visible under the black cardstock, so this is why I'm using black. And I'll be using black tape for the other 2 black strips as well. Now, to adhere the houses, I'm first going to stamp them using black ink onto the panel and will foam mount each house later. I still have them connected with washi tape, so it's very easy for me to know which house goes where. The reason I'm stamping the identical houses onto my panels and not just foam mounting the houses is because first, I like the way it looks, and second, because I'm adding those additional details to the tall houses and the churches. So stamping the little details that would have been too difficult to cut out. So this part is going to take a while, lots of stamping again and lots of foam mounting. And you'll notice that as I get to the other side of my first street and to the other streets, I'm also starting to add additional design elements. I'm adding trees and stamping a bench and a little fountain and things like that. So once everything was adhered onto my panel, I stamped diagonal lines using the candy cane background stamp and pool ink onto another strip of cardstock. I could have stamped it directly onto my card base, but I didn't want to do that because I wasn't sure if the color is going to go nicely with my design and if I'm going to mess up the stamping or not. So I stamped it onto additional piece of cardstock and tested if that looked okay, and then adhered that piece onto my card base. I often use this trick and it had saved me a lot of different card bases. I also adhered my town panel and decorated the card with a few clear droplets from Pretty Pink Posh. I adhered those using multi-medium adhesive from Ranger. So here's another look at all 4 of my projects created using the Town Essentials stamp set from Hero Arts. There are still a few images on this set that I haven't tried, like the lake and the little boat and a bunch of cars, and I'm hoping to use these in the future. I'm telling you, this stamp set is addictive. It just makes you want to go and stamp. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Drop me a comment and share with fellow stampers. I have lots more videos using stamps from Hero Arts. Be sure to check those out as well for additional inspiration. And thanks. I'll see you next time. Bye.